Hello, I'm David Lima, chairman of the Linda May Mayan Lima Foundation. It is said that a soldier dies twice, once with their last breath, and again when their name is forgotten. In recognition of Memorial Day each year, the foundation has honored those from the Elk Grove area who have died in the conflicts of World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War era, and the Persian Gulf Wars. In 2023, we read the names and service records of 15 area service members who died in these conflicts. These are the names of the Elk Grove area veterans presented in 2023. From World War I, Charles E. Walther. World War II, Charles R. Chalmers. Korea, DeRoy F. Kammerer. Vietnam, David L. Felt, Rodney D. Martinez III, Dennis R. Langrock, Dennis E. Lane, Theodore T. Mazon, Raymond Villapando, Wayne D. Heinz, Joseph A. Galvez, Michael M. Cox, Gary P. Rader, John G. Melkor, C. Earl Fife. In 2024, we share the names of 14 other area service members who also died in these conflicts. These are their names. From World War I, Mark N. Whiteman was born on July 9, 1890 in Union House, a town near today's intersection of Franklin Boulevard and Mack Road. Mark was in the Elk Grove High School class of 1909. He was called up for military service on April 1, 1918, and on May 24, 1918 at Camp Lewis, Washington, he was assigned as a private to Company C, 182nd Infantry Brigade, 363rd Infantry Regiment of the 91st Infantry Division. Mark and his unit left for France on July 6, 1918 from Brooklyn, New York on the Union steamship vessel Britain. As his unit arrived in France, they became part of the initial forces in Pershing's big push to end the war. Mark, now a private first class, died from gunshot wounds on October 3, 1918 on the battlefield in the Argonne Forest of France, just a month before armistice. He was buried in the Meuse Argonne American Cemetery, and his father began a determined process to return Mark home. The process was long and arduous, but before Mark could be returned, his father died March 17, 1920, some say of a broken heart for not being able to bring his son home. Mark's remains were returned home 18 months later, and on September 17, 1921, he was reinterred in the family plot in the Sacramento City Cemetery. He was 28. From World War II, Cooper T. Tahara was in the Elk Grove High School class of 1939 and was inducted into the Army in 1941, serving as a private first class in Company I, 3rd Battalion of the segregated Japanese-American 442nd Regimental Combat Team. While Cooper was fighting in Europe, the Tahara family was incarcerated in Arkansas. They were released in April 1945, but during their incarceration, on November 5, 1944, in France, near the German-Austrian border, Cooper was killed in combat by sniper fire. For his gallantry, he was awarded the Bronze Star with Oak Leaf Cluster and the Purple Heart. Cooper was interred in the American Military Cemetery in Epinal, France, but his remains were brought home on March 9, 1949, with burial in the Sacramento Memorial Lawn Cemetery. He was 20. Daniel Fikert was a private in the Army, 22nd Infantry Regiment, 4th Infantry Division. He grew up in Point Pleasant, worked on the family ranch, and enlisted in April 1944 at the Presidio in Monterey. He was married in July 1944, just before being deployed to Europe. Daniel died December 3, 1944, in combat in Luxembourg, and was awarded the Purple Heart. He is buried in the Henri Chapelle Cemetery in Belgium. He was 23. Elroy F. Rieger was a PFC in the Army, 119th Infantry Regiment, 30th Infantry Division. He grew up in Point Pleasant, was in the Elk Grove High School class of 1943 before enlisting in June 1944. Elroy was wounded in battle in December 1944, but returned to service in February 1945. He died in action on March 24, 1945, near Koblenz, Germany, and was awarded the Purple Heart with oak leaf cluster. Elroy is buried in the Netherlands American Cemetery in Margraten, Netherlands. He was 20. Hubert T. Fikert was a private in the United States Marine Corps, Company G, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, 6th Marine Division. He grew up in Point Pleasant and attended Carroll School, near Franklin. He enlisted in the Navy and was transferred to the Marines in July 1944. Hubert was wounded in combat on Okinawa and died on May 21, 1945. He was awarded the Purple Heart and is buried in the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific in Punchbowl, Honolulu, Hawaii. He was 20. In the Korean War, Shogo Iwatsuru was a PFC in the Army, Company C, 23rd Infantry Regiment, 2nd Infantry Division. He went to Pleasant Grove Elementary and was in the Elk Grove High School class of 1947. During World War II, he and his family were incarcerated, first in Arkansas, then in Colorado. The family was released in 1945. Shogo entered service in Elk Grove on December 19, 1950. He was wounded by a missile in the Battle of Bloody Ridge in North Korea and died of those wounds September 6, 1951. He was awarded the Purple Heart. Shogo is buried in the Veterans Section of the East Lawn Memorial Park in Sacramento. He was 20. The Vietnam War. James A. Belleville was a PFC in the United States Army as a light weapons infantryman in Company B, 3rd Battalion, 12th Infantry Regiment, 4th Infantry. He grew up in Florin and was in the Elk Grove High School class of 1963. He was married. James died on November 19, 1967, of hostile action in Kontum Province after 3 months in country and was awarded a Bronze Star and the Purple Heart. He is buried in the East Lawn Southgate Cemetery in Elk Grove. He was 22. Roy Wayne Graham was a PFC in the Army as an infantryman with Company C, 1st Battalion, 52nd Infantry, 198th Infantry Brigade of the Americal Division. He attended Sierra Enterprise Elementary and was in the Elk Grove High School class of 1966. He was married with a 3-month-old daughter. Roy died on May 20, 1969, of hostile action in Quanai Province after 3 months in country, and was awarded a Bronze Star and the Purple Heart. He is buried in Cherokee Memorial Park in Lodi. He was 20. Kenneth Eugene Asno was a PFC in the Army as an armor crewman with I Troop, 3rd Squadron, 11th Armored Cavalry. He grew up in Florin and was in the Elk Grove High School class of 1968. Kenneth died on April 22, 1970, of hostile action in Bien Hoa Province after 3 months in country and was awarded the Purple Heart. He is buried in the East Lawn Southgate Cemetery in Elk Grove. He was 19. In the Gulf Wars, Joseph Charles Nure was a sergeant in the United States Army, Army Reserve 463rd Engineer Battalion. He grew up in Dillard, was in the Elk Grove High School class of 2001, and attended CSU Sacramento before joining the Army National Guard. Joe died August 21, 2005, when a makeshift bomb detonated near his tractor during convoy operations near Samarra, Iraq. Joe was awarded the Bronze Star and Purple Heart. He is buried in the Pleasant Grove Cemetery in Elk Grove. He was 22. Tibonius Ty Johnson was a specialist in the Army, 2nd Battalion, 320th Field Artillery Regiment, 1st Brigade Combat Team, 101st Airborne Division. He was the older of twin boys, grew up in Utah, and graduated from Jordan High School in Sandy, Utah. Ty enlisted in the Army in Elk Grove. He was married with 2 children. Ty died April 4, 2006, when an improvised device detonated near his Humvee in combat operations in Kirkuk, Iraq. He is buried in the Midvale City Cemetery in Midvale, Utah. He was 28. Isaac S. Lawson was a Sergeant First Class in the United States Army National Guard. He was in the 49th Military Police Brigade, was married with 3 daughters. He was in the Elk Grove High School class of 1989 and was a standout track sprinter. Isaac died June 5, 2006, of injuries sustained when an improvised explosive device detonated near his Humvee during combat operations near Camp Victor in Baghdad, Iraq. Isaac was awarded the Purple Heart and is buried in the Sacramento Memorial Lawn Cemetery. He was 35. Ray A. Ramirez was a specialist in the Army 3rd Battalion, 15th Infantry Regiment, 4th Infantry Brigade Combat Team, 3rd Infantry Division. In March 2011, after graduating from Florin High School, Ray declined a scholarship to play Division I college baseball and instead chose to enlist in the Army. Ray died June 1, 2013, when an improvised explosive device detonated in combat operations in Wardak, Afghanistan. He was awarded the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart. Ray is interred at the Sacramento Valley National Cemetery in Solano County. He was 20. Brian Edward Hall was a Sergeant First Class with the United States Army Company A, 1st Battalion, 67th Armor, 2nd Brigade Combat Team. He grew up in Elk Grove and was in the Elk Grove High School class of 1994. Brian died on April 10, 2009 in Mosul, Iraq, when he purposefully maneuvered his combat vehicle to intercept a suicide bomber intent on attacking a police compound. As detailed in military records, Brian's actions saved hundreds of lives. He is buried in the Pleasant Grove Cemetery in Elk Grove. He was 32. Each year, the Foundation also presents a more detailed story of one of these veterans. In 2024, we present the story of Sergeant First Class Brian E. Hall, who was a 1994 graduate of Elk Grove High School and who died in Iraq in 2009. The development of Brian's story is a result of a combination of researching newspaper, archival, and military records, and numerous conversations with those who knew Brian, including, most importantly, his parents, John and Betty Hall, his wife Rachel, his sister Christy, his Elk Grove neighborhood friend, Marcus Burkett, and his Army brother, Brian Ullage. What is revealed is a deeply moving story of a man who from early childhood developed a keen sense of right and wrong, of faith and trust, of loyalty and truthfulness, and of an intense commitment to his obligations, particularly his family. This is the story of Brian Edward Hall. Brian was born in Sacramento April 17, 1976, to John and Betty Hall of Elk Grove. Brian attended Capital Christian Elementary, Kerr Middle School, and graduated from Elk Grove High School in 1994. He was an avid hunter and fisherman, developing this interest as a young boy. From age 5, he spent hours thumbing through books, magazines, even encyclopedias, studying photographs, then becoming a ferocious reader of everything outdoors. As a youth, he had a strong sense of right and wrong, of serving the community, and of protecting the vulnerable. He even became interested in joining the ministry, but he also developed a keen interest in military service. As a young boy, game time for Brian meant playing with toy soldiers. When his friends wanted to play with other toys or games, Brian suggested that it may be time for you to go home. Soldiers were more than toys for Brian. As he grew, his interest in the military was honed on the motivations of honor, service, and dedication to protecting his country and its people. In high school, he decided military service over the ministry when he joined an Army early entry program. He attended training camps during the summer, and after high school graduation, he attended advanced Army training for 2 weeks in Hawaii before starting classes at Cosumnes River College. Even though Brian was attending classes at Cosumnes River College, he stayed connected to neighborhood friends who were still in high school, including Marcus Burkett. Not too surprisingly, hijinks were usual for these friends, but for Brian, hijinks had their limits. He was the one who called it a night or put an end to behavior which might otherwise have led to trouble. For the others, at one time Brian was a buzzkill, a stick in the mud, a fuddy-duddy. As Brian continued his path of military aspirations, others in the neighborhood lived troubled teenage and young adulthood lives. But as time went on, they looked back with respect and admiration at the maturity and leadership exhibited by Brian and began to emulate those traits. As reflected by Marcus, these qualities eventually took hold in his life, and today, on occasion, he now takes his 2 young boys to visit Brian's grave to not only pay respects, but to use the visit as an opportunity to share with his boys the values that Brian personified: honor, loyalty, duty, faith, and trust. Characteristics Marcus now speaks to as pastor of the Cypress Missionary Baptist Church in Elk Grove. It's also of note that Marcus's home is on Bryan Hall Way in Elk Grove. While Brian did well in college, his real interest, as stated, was service in the Army. After Cosumnes River College, he joined the Army full-time and was stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Brian excelled at everything that was thrown at him. He was hard-charging and kept pursuing higher levels of training and military accomplishment. He quickly advanced in rank and higher levels of responsibility and complexity in his assignments. In 1997, on a leave home from Fort Campbell, Brian went with his family to Las Vegas to watch his sister Christy play in a softball tournament. It was here that Brian met his future wife Rachel, who played on the same Elk Grove team as Christy. After Brian returned to Fort Campbell, he and Rachel stayed in touch by writing and soon began dating as Rachel made frequent trips to Kentucky. She later joined Brian at Fort Campbell, and the couple married in 2004. During their marriage, Brian toyed with the idea of getting out of the military, but instead he re-upped and was stationed in Alaska for 3 years. This posting was ideal for Brian because his off time allowed him to fully enjoy the outdoors and his interests in hunting and fishing. After Alaska, Brian was transferred to Fort Benning, Georgia, and the Ranger School. His dad had the honor of pinning Brian with his Army Ranger badge. It was also at Fort Benning that Brian and Rachel's daughter Addison was born in 2007. Brian desired to be Special Forces, but twice injuries kept him from completing the school. This led him to become classified as a weapons training specialist with an assignment to travel to various posts throughout the country, training troops on the use of weapons from .50 caliber machine guns to sidearms. It's during this assignment that he met and became fast friends with Brian Olich. The 2 men were about the same age, were married, and each had a daughter born within months of each other. But more than that, as they traveled the country together, the 2 appreciated that they shared areas of interest and common values, including their commitment to family responsibilities. Sergeant First Class Olich recently retired from the Army after 25 years of service. The day before he retired, he was preparing to take his son on a camping trip adventure in upstate New York. He remembered with clarity and emotion the life enrichment of the years that he and Brian were assigned together, of their common interests in the outdoors, but most importantly, about how he still deeply missed Brian, who was more a brother to him than his own family. After 4.5 years at Fort Benning, Brian was then stationed at Fort Carson, Colorado, where he was assigned to Company A of the 1st Battalion, 67th Armor Regiment, 2nd Brigade Combat Team, 4th Infantry Division. While at Fort Carson, as usual, Brian and Rachel stayed close to their families in California, who occasionally visited them in Colorado. One such visitor was Rachel's young nephew, Colton. Brian and Colton made an instant connection, almost father and son-like. Brian adored Colton, and his influence on the young boy was enormous and positive. Nearly 20 years later, finds Colton as an Army Ranger stationed at Fort Benning, and, just as Brian, is a modest, down-to-earth man with a strong conviction to and creed of honor, duty, and trust. From Fort Carson, Brian and his unit were deployed to Iraq. While Brian scored well on assessment tests, he turned down an opportunity to attend Officers Candidate School so he could continue to be a ground troop. He really wanted to capture one of those in the Iraqi leadership who were characterized in that most wanted playing card deck, which he did while his unit was deployed near Baghdad, Iraq. Most of Brian's deployment was extremely active and tense, but because of the unit's training and equipment, it gave a false sense of predictability. However, everyone knew they needed to be diligent and alert for anything and everything out of the ordinary, as was the case on April 10, 2009. It was this day that a suicide bomber drove an explosive-laden dump truck directly toward a military and police compound just as an Army patrol was leaving that compound. Brian's mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicle was the last in the line in the patrol. The bomber was able to evade the other vehicles in the patrol, which left only Brian's vehicle as the last line of defense. Brian maneuvered his vehicle to intercept the suicide bomber and, while within 12 feet, opened fire with a .50 caliber machine gun, disabling the truck just short of the compound. It was then that the bomber detonated the explosives. Brian and his 4 team members died instantly from the overpressure of the blast. As documented in military records, Brian's actions saved hundreds of lives in and around the compound, for which he was posthumously awarded several commendations and decorations for valor. Word of his death reached his family through an Army team that came to Elk Grove to personally meet them. At the same time, the Army was planning for Brian to be returned home. The news quickly spread in Elk Grove, and the outpouring of support and sympathy was bolstering to the family. A casualty assistance officer and his team escorted parents John and Betty, sister Christy, wife Rachel, and baby daughter Addison, along with Rachel's mother, to Dover, Delaware, to be present at the ceremony when Brian's coffin arrived back on U.S. soil. They were joined by 4 other families from across the country. This was the first time that civilian families were permitted to attend this ceremony in Dover. Here in Elk Grove, arrangements were made for a CHP-escorted motorcade from the Sacramento Executive Airport to Elk Grove. Along the route, police and fire units, as well as the general public, stood on overpasses to salute and pay tribute to Brian. Along Elk Grove Boulevard, citizens standing shoulder to shoulder lined the entire route to the Herberger Funeral Home in Old Town, not 2 blocks from where Brian grew up. After the service, Brian was interred with full military honors at the Pleasant Grove Cemetery in rural Elk Grove. This cemetery was selected because when the family visited the site, wild turkeys trotted across the grounds. The family instantly knew that Brian would be very much appreciative that this was going to be his final resting place. Brian died doing what he loved and was proud of what he was doing, proud of his service. By all military accords, Brian was a hero, but his friends and family know that Brian's definition of heroism went well beyond a single individual act, military or otherwise. Honor, service, dedication, humility were more than just words to Brian. They reflected his character, his commitment, and the way he lived his life. He loved his uniform and wore it proudly. But when he wasn't a soldier, he dedicated himself to being a solid husband, father, brother, and son. These responsibilities he accepted and met with enthusiasm and seriousness. His sister Christy offered, "It is said that a soldier dies twice, first when they take their last breath, and again when their name is no longer spoken." To assure that Brian was not forgotten, Christy enlisted family and friends, with major backing from the Outback Steakhouse restaurant in Elk Grove, to begin the Walk to Remember in his honor, which was held for 10 years. Proceeds from these events have created an education fund for Brian's daughter Addison, while also endowing a perpetual scholarship available to college-bound students interested in military careers. But perhaps the most important remembrance will be the impact that Brian had on those in his life, and how his influence will be paid forward by their actions and life examples. Parents who continue exemplary work in the community, a sister who brings his story into her classroom and embeds life lessons from Brian into her daily lessons, a wife whose heart grows bigger and who purposefully imparts Brianisms to their daughter, a friend, now a minister, who includes Brian's beliefs into his work and life, and a daughter who carries something no one else has, his genetic code. Sergeant First Class Hall had many awards and commendations, some of which included the Purple Heart, Bronze Star, 3 Army Commendation Medals, 8 Army Achievement Medals, Combat Infantry Badge, Air Assault Badge, and that of the United States Army Ranger. But his most valuable tribute is the legacy he leaves through his family and friends. This is a production of the Linda May and Lima Foundation and is protected by copyright. To enjoy other productions and get information about the year-round activities of the Foundation, please visit our website at lmmlfoundation.org.